Hello there. Welcome to another fountain pen ink review. Today we're going to be reviewing Herbin Gris Nuage. I believe that's as close as this hillbilly can get to French. But this is a sample was given to me by Herbin Nagaro on Fountain Pen Geeks. And what we're going to do, let's just go ahead and get started with the review. This is Herbin Gris Nuage. The pen is a Lamy Safari. Has a medium nib. Paper is Tomo River. If you look at this, when this ink first goes on, this is a very light ink. When it first goes on, you can see some difference in the range of color. Some areas are darker, especially if you dot an eye or anything like that. There's some shading in this ink. This is a light gray ink. The Gris Nuage, I believe, stands for gray clouds or cloudy gray. But this ink has an interesting characteristic I see in some inks, and that is that you'll see shading. But as this ink dries, as a matter of fact, I'm not even going to do the little scribble and swipe it and all. I tried it. It took 5 times. It took 35 seconds for this ink to dry on this paper. But you can already see, if you look up top here, that the ink is starting to even out the color range. The shading is starting to go away. What it reminds me a lot of is, believe it or not, watercolor paints. You know how a watercolor paint that's loaded up with water, you put it on the paper and begin to paint with it, and you'll have like a little blurb or a little blob of it over here that's a lot darker than the rest of it. But as it begins to dry, everything sort of starts to even out. And this is something that I see in this paper, or in this pen a lot, or in this ink. I can't speak. So it's lovely, but I mean, it's a fairly light gray. Let's check out the Quick Brown Fox. The Quick Brown Fox jumps over the lazy dog. Lovely, and again, you can see the shading in this ink. Here, 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 along in here. But you can look here and see that it's already beginning to even out. The thing about this ink, I really like the color of it. It reminds me a lot of writing with a pencil, what writing looks like with a pencil. That really does. I mean, for example, I mean, it's not exactly the same, but look here. Number 2 pencil. Of course, they're both grays, but I mean, that's what it reminds me a lot of. So I initially, when I started to write with this ink, it was really light, but it darkens. Like I said, it darkens up because I think there's a lot more water content. This doesn't have as much solids in it as a lot of other inks, and I would expect the more solid you would have it, the darker the ink would get. So to make a gray, you know, that might be part of the deal is that you need less solids in it, which means it'll probably clean out of the pen really well. But I mean, if you look at it, almost all the shading, there's still a little bit here and here, and some here and here, but most of it has gone away, and it's beginning to be smoother. And when it does that, it kind of darkens a bit, and it's enough. You know, if to me, if you can write with a pencil and read, then you shouldn't have a lot of problem picking this up, because they're really close together as far as, actually, if you look at it, this is just a bit darker even than writing with a pencil. So I've seen some complaints of people that say, well, this ink is too light for everyday use. And in my opinion, if you can use a pencil every day, and a lot of people do, then using this ink shouldn't be a problem. And I like it. It's got, I like the way that it begins to, that it smooths out and darkens. It's smooth under the nib. Now this is my Safari. So on the Tomo River paper here, that's fairly smooth to start with. Let's do some fast writing. I mean, it keeps up really well. Of course, the nib and the pen have a lot to do with that. But I really like this ink. I mean, it's not something that I would add to my ink collection simply because it looks so much like, in my opinion, so much like writing with a pencil to start with. But it has that couple of unique, or a couple of cool characteristics. The one being the way that it evens out and darkens a bit, and it flows really well. And I have seen another guy on YouTube do he was showing how to fill a fountain pen, and he used this ink, and he kind of pointed out a couple of the things that he likes to use it for. He uses it in the office because you can actually scribble over darker inks with this and still see through it. So he kind of uses it sort of as a highlighter. He says that if you want to underline something, you can underline it and it'll kind of point out what it is that you're trying to underline so that you can make it conspicuous and see it on the page. But it's not going to cover up if you do that instead by accident or whatever. It's not going to cover up what's there or obscure it in any way. And he says that's one of the things that he likes this ink for. But I mean, if you like grays, and you like grays, and in a lot of ways this almost reminds me of a silver. It's edging into that for me. But I mean, if you like light grays, if that's something that you're interested in. Also, one of the things that I haven't considered until now, when I use this ink, and I thought, well, it's gray and it's not, until I started looking at the shading characteristics when you write with it and stuff like that, I thought it not that big of a deal. It's just a gray ink. But for people that draw and do artwork with different colored fountain pen inks and stuff like this, this might be something people could get into. But it's a good ink. The J. Herbin inks are all good inks anyway. Have a good reputation. But yeah, not so light that you can't read it. It flows really well in the pen. I think it's a really nice color. It's just not something that I would use because I like a more bold and darker or brighter type color when I write. That's kind of part of my character. That's why I like things like Arroyo Blues or Concord Grape or Violet or things like Sapphire Blues and stuff like that. Some of the brighter reds and the oranges and because I like that brightness, and you're not going to get that as it's a gray cloud. I mean, that's the deal. But good ink, and if you're interested in a gray ink, a lighter gray ink, this would be a good one to choose. Alright, thank you for listening to me ramble on, and God bless you. I'll talk to you later. I hope this review was helpful to you. Later.